that I just love. I mean, this company makes aircraft that I actually started flying in.
You love it, I love it, Todd loves it, a lot of people love it. We're here at AirVenture Oshkosh. I'm Dan Johnson, and I'm speaking today with Todd Ellefson of Quicksilver Aeronautics, it's now called. I say that very carefully because this company has gone through some ownership transitions, and it just went through a new one, and I think it looks really good from what my view says. And so what used to be Quicksilver Manufacturing is now Quicksilver Aeronautics, and some new owners that are really going to take things and move with them from the sound of it. I've seen some of the plans that they've got in mind, and boy, it looks like we're really going to see some action, one of which relates to the GT500. We are coming up, this is 2012, in another year we're going to be at 2013, and this airplane will have achieved something called primary aircraft category 20 years ago, next year. That's pretty significant for a couple of reasons. Number one, we just heard Cessna announce that they are going to go primary category with their Skycatcher so that they can get into the European community. The rules over there are still evolving, and they don't want to wait, so they're going to take advantage of that. That's going to mean something interesting for the GT500 too. So Todd, the company is planning with its new ownership, Guillermo Escutia and Daniel Perez are the two new owners. I hope I didn't butcher the last name of Will too bad. And they're the ones that are really going to take things and really move it forward now, I believe, in a new way. But one of the things they're planning to do is achieve special light sport aircraft status with some of these airplanes. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. Pretty much everything is underway, and we're working on the Sport 2S as the first one, and then immediately after that, or simultaneously, we'll be doing the GT500, and hope to have it done within the year.
Excellent. We'll come back to that in a moment, but first, just because you mentioned two airplanes, there's sort of like two tracks in the Quicksilver company. One is what I call the MX track. That's the side-by-side open cockpit airplanes that we've seen so many of. And then there's the GT track, which this is the leading example of, a yoke-controlled airplane available in single and two-seat varieties, and we're looking at the GT500, which is the two-seater, tandem two-seater. In achieving that SLSA status for both airplanes, you're relying on previous engineering work that had been done very, very thoroughly, I'm aware, and that's going to make this process a little bit easier, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We've just had a audit done by Streamline, and they have come up with the steps that we need to take to become SLSA, and we have a lot of the work already done, so hopefully it won't be too big of a challenge.
So the evaluation Todd refers to is from a company that works very, very closely with the ASTM group and knows that stuff inside and out. They came out just recently, about a month or so ago, as I recall, and did an evaluation to see, well, okay, if you're here, how far do you have to go to get to there? There being special light sport aircraft status, which means you could buy this airplane ready to fly. So far, there are something like, between all models of the Quicksilvers over all the years, a rather phenomenal 15,000 or more flying, and every one of those has been built as a kit, except maybe for a few Part 103s that could be fully manufactured. But the company never did that before. It was dealers who could manufacture the 103s or something, but the company never did that before, correct?
Nope, not other than primary category.
So now they're getting geared up in a steady, slow process perhaps, but moving toward doing factory assembled, I'll say, but maybe not even factory assembled, because you could have dealers do this as well.
Yeah, we can establish build centers, around the country, and that's something that's under consideration, based on the need. The factory will assemble, some at the plant, but likely there will be other build centers also.
There's a lot of dealers for Quicksilver. It's one of the most well-supported airplanes in the light aircraft segment, I'm sure. And so there's a number that have been with you for decades, not even just years, but decades. Yeah. And they know the airplane very well. They've already built many, many, many kits or helped people build them. They could now set up, if somebody comes up and says, well, I don't want to build any part of it. Once you've achieved SLSA status, they could just say, fine, we'll build it for you and we'll sell it to you for some larger number because they have to pay for their time. But some interesting ideas that way that they could.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I'm most excited about, is the fact, for the dealers especially, they have the ability to build that plane entirely on their own. If the customer prefers that, or build part of it, or the customer can build part, the dealer, the factory, anybody that wants to can build part of that ELSA aircraft. and just gives people more options and makes it more convenient.
So down the road, we'll use a bunch of alphabet soup here. EAB, experimental amateur built. That's what it is
right.
today. If it's a two-seater, although it could be a Part 103, so I guess there's 4 categories.
Right. Yeah.
There's some Part 103s that can be fully assembled. Experimental amateur built, it can be built by the owner, of course, the 51% rule, as we know that. And then SLSA status, that's fully built by the factory or by factory appointees. And once you've achieved that, you can do ELSA, or experimental light sport aircraft. That's about every way you could possibly deliver an airplane in today's market. So very cool. So that's all fine. That's sort of regulatory crap, and we don't need to talk about that too long. Let's get back to how the airplane flies.
Sure, yeah.
What's the charming aspect of flying this airplane, Todd?
Well, for me, this is my personal favorite, the GT500, and for me, it's the visibility. The seat's out ahead of the wing, and so there's no restriction, other than the windshield.
Sure, I see where the pilot sits right here. Your head's, right about there. You're well forward of the whole wing. You can see everything.
Yeah, it's a thrilling experience being in that position. And I like just the way that it feels. I like the way it performs. It's durable. These things can be rebuilt if damaged quickly because they're all bolted together, and it's been a real solid plane for us.
Now, what we've got on here now, and they're kind of folded down in here, is a whole door arrangement that can go up and close the whole airplane in, which you can zip inside or outside, by the way. You don't have to have somebody do that for you. But if you want, you can just remove that and fly the airplane without any doors on it, right?
Yep, you bet. The doors come off. There's a neat little bag for them. You just stick them alongside the seat. If you're going to fly home, it's later in the evening, it's gotten cold or something, you can zip the doors back on. And it's a nice option to have, for this model. It gives you the option to go both ways.
And as a man who lives in Rochester, Minnesota, he knows about cold.
That's right, yeah. I appreciate these doors.
There's a time when this can really give you some protection against it. So the single seat version is called the GT400.
That's right.
And that's basically, well, if you just took that part out, you'd sort of have it.
That's right, yeah. It has a bulkhead right in the back of the seat here. And the GT400, as you've reported before, is just an extremely nice handling single seat aircraft.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite flying single-seaters because it just handles so well. It's a yoke controlled, it's not stick controlled, but it really flies nicely, and I think almost everybody that gets in it starts to feel like I do, that it's one of their favorite single-seat airplanes.
Oh, definitely. It's quiet. That's the first thing I noticed when flying the 400 was how much quieter it is than a lot of aircraft because the engine's way in the back, and the handling is superb. You have it's predictable. There's no quirky things on landing. Everything's smooth. It's just a nice flying plane.
And conventional pilots like it because of the way the control system is.
Sure, yeah, with the control yoke. Yeah, the transition is easier that way too because you have the yoke like a lot of people are used to in GA.
That's how most people are trained these days, is with a yoke. So
yeah.
And the first one that I flew was on a little amphib float underneath it. It was just a fantastic little airplane.
Yep, that's where I started too, on a Spalding single monofloat down the middle, and I flew that thing all over the place. 447 Rotax. That was a lot of fun.
And what powers the airplane today?
The GT500?
Yeah, let's see. Well, take each of them,
Sure.
500 and 400.
GT500 is 3 engine options. We have the 582, which is a 65 horse water cooled 2-stroke. We've got the 912, the 80 horsepower 4-stroke Rotax, and the 912S, the 100 horsepower 4-stroke Rotax. So you have a lot of options. Each engine has its unique little characteristics. All of them perform really well. The 582 is like a match set for this aircraft, and and then if you want the 4-stroke reliability, well, I shouldn't say reliability, but if you just like
perceived reliability anyway.
Perceived reliability.
A little smoother sound, different sound and stuff.
Yeah, and the fuel burns a little bit less, so there are some definite advantages to the 4-stroke also, but it's all available.
Like a 2,000-hour TBO.
2,000-hour TBO is huge, yep.
So we mentioned that the name of the company is Quicksilver Aeronautics, and that is the name of the corporation now that produces the airplane today. But we've teased people with a little bit of information here. If they want to get more information via the web, because they're watching this video on the web, what's the web address they should go to today, Todd?
Yep, quicksilveraircraft.com, and we have a list of dealers on that site, as well as other information, and then there's contact information for me and others at Quicksilver there as well.
Excellent. So thank you for that. Quicksilveraircraft.com. I've had the pleasure, I think, to fly just about every Quicksilver there is, and most of those, or all of those, are reported on my website, which is bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Thanks for joining us here today at AirVenture Oshkosh.